Story 1. Something like adaptive brightness but for ringtones. If you are in a loud room, your ringer is louder. If you are in a quiet room, the ringtone is quieter. Story 2. Enter one screen unlock code, and you get your normal full array of apps, email, pictures, messages, customized wallpaper, and more. Enter a different screen unlock code, and it is like you are looking at a completely different phone, one that only has minimal apps and maybe a different wallpaper, as if it is a phone someone has not yet loaded with content. Does this exist? Because it should. Story 3. Lock your screen to display a picture. This way, you can give someone your phone to show them a picture without them scrolling through your photos and potentially seeing something they are not supposed to. Story 4. How about a feature I want back? My first Android phone had an infrared blaster, and I could control all kinds of devices with it. It was so handy to flip my own channels at a sports bar and watch whatever I wanted. Story 5. I want 5 hardware buttons on the side that I can map to any function I want. For example, assign one to the flashlight, rotate screen, mute, open notifications shade, tasker macro, and so on. Story 6. Live weather radar overlay when using Google Maps. I traveled across the United States a few times recently, and it was a difficult experience to switch between a weather application that had a significant delay in location in maps, so I could see the weather conditions along my route. Additionally, the ability to program a search for gas stations based on how many miles remain on the tank during the trip would be helpful. With the integration of Android Auto with vehicles, this feature would make a lot of sense. A road trip function on Google Maps would be very useful. Story 7. Maybe I just haven't found it, but I would really like to be able to call out for it, like, "Hey phone, where are you?" and get a reply from wherever I left it, like here. Story 8. I want my global positioning system to recognize when I have accidentally driven past the place I was navigating to and continue giving me directions so I can try again. As it is now, if I get within 100 yards of my destination, it just says you have arrived and shuts down. Story 9. While using the phone for navigation, I would like a "This road is closed" button. It is really annoying to reach a closed road that Google Maps does not know about and either have to 1. Stop the car to figure out an alternative route. 2. Try to find my own alternative route while Google Maps insists on taking me back on the route I just left. This feature exists on my 10-year-old car satellite navigation system. Story 10. Basically, I would love a system-wide feature that allows independent volume control for each application on the device, enabling the user to customize audio levels for specific applications, such as muting Spotify advertisements while continuing to watch a YouTube video. Edit. I am an iPhone user. I am sure I will soon find out this has been an Android feature for years. Story 11. Editable routes in Maps. You can add a stop to go a certain way, but I feel like you should be able to drag the route to an area where you want to go. Story 12. Some cell phones, particularly older models and some Android phones, have built-in frequency modulation radio capabilities. However, many modern smartphones, including iPhones, do not have this feature activated even if the hardware is present. Story 13. Walkie-talkie functionality and frequency modulation radio. You used to be able to do the latter when we still had wired headphones and dedicated work phones. Story 14. Coming from Android and loving the clock application, I have been absolutely appalled at the iPhone clock application. Being able to pause alarms on a schedule is a great and seemingly basic feature. I pause my wake-up alarm during vacation and do not have to remember to re-enable it. It is so important that I still use my old Android phone and Pixel Watch as my alarm clock. Also, if you take off your Apple Watch to charge overnight, it will not show the alarm going off on your phone plugged in across the room. The Pixel Watch will. Story 15. Geographic alarms. I want to be able to close my eyes on a train and say, "Wake me up a few miles before my stop." Story 16. I want wireless charging to be ubiquitous. I want it embedded in tables, reception desks, waiting areas, and cars. I want vertical holders for those chargers so I don't always have to lay the phone flat. I want a bigger battery in general. I do not care if my phone is 2 millimeters thin. I want it to last all day with the screen on and playing Candy Crush without needing to charge it. I want terrestrial radio natively. There is no reason why I can't tune my phone to 97.8 The Rock. I want my camera to switch between modes like infrared and FLIR heat vision. I am not taking 4-hour long exposures of the night sky with my phone. I want to see if my windows are leaking heat or if there is a scorpion in my bed before I climb in. I want health and medical sensors. I want a full-fledged tricorder in my iPhone with a small attachment I can plug into the USB-C port that checks me for cancer and a glucose reader in the fingerprint sensor that tells me my blood sugar. I want my phone to be my identification, my access key card, my car key, and my credit card. Almost there. I am tired of carrying many items in my pockets when my phone can theoretically do all of that. Story 17. A universal remote control. All it needs is an infrared light-emitting diode at the front and a good database for audio-video equipment. I have a Harmony remote. They do not make them anymore. I changed the battery once. The dog chewed it, but I got it working again. If it breaks definitively, I will be my wife's help desk to explain 4 remotes and the sequences for the rest of my life. I know there are applications. I tried many of them, but not a single one proved to be an adequate solution. So please, a universal remote. Story 18. I would like it to remember both sets of hearing aids. iPhone user and made for iPhone hearing aids. I have to forget them and repair them every time I switch. Also, it should be able to stream audio to 2 separate Bluetooth devices. I know this feature is already available for Android. Story 19. I want to highlight text and reverse capitalization on it. On PC as well. I typed something out without realizing it was on caps lock, so I just highlight and reverse capitalization to lowercase and vice versa. Story 20. Multiple user spaces. When the owner of the phone types in a different password, it becomes like a different phone. You can have a work phone where none of your personal data can be seen if you hand your phone to a coworker. Story 21. Being able to organize photos by albums. On the iPhone, you can put photos into albums, but they all remain in your main photo feed as well. I have thousands of photos and need a better way to keep them organized. This is a simple feature that should exist. Story 22. Software-defined radio. Capabilities like those found in software-defined radio and Flipper Zero devices. FLIR, LiDAR, and other sensors. Story 23. Apps to answer the phone, create options or menu trees, and make your cell phone work like a business private branch exchange. Press 1 for me, 2 for her, and 3 for Human Resources Department. Different rings for each option selected, multiple voicemail boxes, etc. Story 24. We are past this point now, but there was a 5-year period when quick response codes existed and your smartphone camera could not read them. You had to get a quick response reader application. Beyond belief in hindsight. Story 25. This is more about applications and websites, but phones too. In a globalized world, I still find it hard to have multilingual features everywhere I need them. For example, the iPhone has keyboards with 2 languages now, but Alexa still has trouble with languages. Why can't I have 3 languages on my Echo? Is it that hard? All 3 languages are available, but you cannot have all 3 at once. Story 26. Go offline for messages temporarily. This shows messages as not delivered because you do not want to receive messages temporarily. Story 27. A useful application would be artificial intelligence software for queuing and connecting to call centers without having to wait on the phone. Just get an alert when the call is connected, pick it up, and be connected to an agent. Story 28. If it detects sound in a public place, such as a hospital waiting room, it will not play anything on the speaker. Story 29. Having full control over how applications operate. If I want YouTube to play in the background, let me. It is my device, so stop with the premium upgrades. Story 30. Should be able to select a piece of text from the screen and transfer it to the screen of a laptop using your fingers. This capability may already exist. Story 31. Google Maps. I would like to be able to edit the navigation path by redrawing parts of the route with my finger. I would like to be able to save that as my preferred path for the area. Story 32. I don't need it slimmer or to take high-resolution pictures of Venus. But I would love to be able to see my screen in the sunlight. Sometimes I can't even see it well enough to adjust the brightness. Then I have to blast the brightness to see it, but the screen gets hot from being bright in the sun and dims itself to prevent overheating. I work outdoors. Just make a screen I can see. Story 33. Text input by lip reading. Silently speaking to the phone in front of the front-facing camera seems much better than speech input in many situations. Story 34. Wi-Fi extender. It can receive a signal and transmit it as a hotspot, but only through data. Let me extend my Wi-Fi. Story 35. I wish my phone would tell me that the place I often visit at 8:30 p.m. has now changed business hours and closes at 8. All the data is there in Google Maps, so why not just show a pop-up? Story 36. A removable battery. I prefer to hot swap batteries from dead to full and put the dead one on the charger. Story 37. A feature that says, "This message will self-destruct." You then hear an explosive sound and the message is deleted. Story 38. Allow multiple user logins as you can on a personal computer. I imagine having a work phone account and a personal one. Do not forget the rarely used account for when you are required to give your phone to law enforcement or the Transportation Security Administration. Story 39. An alcohol sensor that blocks calls to former partners. Add some artificial intelligence, and it can also shut down calls when the caller is talking excessively. Story 40. A smart auto-reply that accesses my calendar, sees I am busy, and then sends a short voice note saying I will call back would end the "why did you ignore me" messages forever. Story 41. Once you block a number, it automatically blocks any other number associated with that business, so they cannot call from other numbers. Ability to block an entire area code at one time. Ability to identify and block a clone number before the phone rings. Story 42. Half of this thread is people saying they wish their iPhone could do something, with somebody immediately commenting that Android has been able to do that for years. Story 43. I would like to enter my iPrescription into the settings and have the phone blur the screen just enough for me to see everything clearly without my glasses. Story 44. The ability to call someone in an emergency and for them to recognize it as an emergency call rather than a regular call. Story 45. I would like to set my alarm to my favorite radio station. I have an iPhone, and this does not seem to be an option. Story 46. The ability to have a master Bluetooth setting. No other Bluetooth device will override this one if it is turned on. As a truck driver, I use my headset for phone calls and the truck stereo to listen to audiobooks, music, and podcasts. The truck stereo overrides my headset no matter what, forcing me to switch the Bluetooth after answering my phone. I do not want to have to touch my phone to answer a call, as it is technically illegal. Story 47. I would like a simple option for older adults, people with disabilities, or anyone frustrated with constant changes to phones. As a librarian who helps many older adults access technology on their phones, the frequent updates and changes are very difficult. Just as some of my patrons learn how to check their email or perform basic tasks, the entire interface changes and they have to start over. Story 48. I want to choose which applications play sound through which speaker. For example, normal usage applications play sound on the phone speaker, while Spotify or YouTube play on the Bluetooth speaker. I want to be able to use both at the same time. I want this feature on Windows 11 but have no idea if it exists. Story 49. Once upon a time, this existed, and I want it back. Assign ringtone or alert sound for a person across all contact modes. In other words, if my child is contacting me, it is the same sound regardless of whether Discord, SMS, chat, or any other platform is used. Another sound for a significant other. A special sound for anything coming from company email. Mute everything coming from an obnoxious neighbor. A very comprehensive filter with both whitelist and blacklist capabilities across all notifications in one common place. On a similar note, being able to mute or increase volume per person or group across all communication methods. Story 50. An ultra-low power mode that disables all functions except phone calls and text messages. It consumes so little power that the phone can easily last an entire week without charging. Story 51. Location-based security. If I am home, my phone stays unlocked, but when I am out, it locks automatically. Story 52. The equivalent of Control plus F to search for a word or phrase on a page. The ability to close all background applications at once instead of swiping them up one at a time. Story 53. If your phone's alarm is set and your phone reaches 5% charge, it should turn off and then turn back on when the alarm goes off. How many times have you overslept or missed a meeting or event because your phone died? Story 54. And I am interacting with law enforcement mode that is as easy to access as the emergency or lock options. Not only would it disable biometric authentication and require a password to change modes, but it would also start recording with both the front and back cameras, backing up to the cloud as close to real-time as technically feasible. Story 55. I was thinking about this feature yesterday. Imagine your passcode is 1234. If you are ever in a situation where you are being forced to unlock your phone by a thief, police, border control, or others, you could use a secondary passcode, for example, 9999. This passcode unlocks a limited or dummy version of your phone with no access to banking, authentication, text messages, or similar features. Story 56. On maps, I want to be able to ask to find something nearest to the route I am on. In other words, I want to skip the Starbucks that is 5 minutes off the highway in favor of the one that is 10 minutes away but right off the highway. I also want a quick way to pause driving directions so I do not get all those return to the route complaints while I am getting that Starbucks order. Story 57. Also, an emergency 10% battery reserve for actual emergencies that have limited phone book, GPS, and call use. Story 58. The smartphone feature I want is that the moment I die, it wipes the entire memory of the phone, leaving nothing but digital ashes. Story 59. Google Maps gives me recommendations on where to meet up with friends, based on where they currently are, spread across the city, and where we have historically gone, such as bars and bookstores. Story 60. Over-the-air radio and television. I would not spend much time watching it, but in a disaster when all cellular service is down and the power is out, it would be a way to receive announcements and hear local news updates. Story 61. 2 SIM cards in one phone with the ability to switch between them. 2 numbers, 1 device. Work phone and personal phone combined in a single phone instead of carrying 2 phones. Story 62. Nerd here. I want hardware-level accessibility. I do not care if it voids the warranty. I want to be able to send instruction sets to the central processing unit in assembly language. I want to be able to shut off chipsets and know they are off at a hardware level. I want to own my hardware, not pay for a lockdown operating system that I cannot even enter the basic input-output system on. Advanced RISC Machines is an amazing little processor, and we pay to basically rent it. Story 63. Improve the contact application. Currently, it is limited and does not fully serve its intended purpose. I want the ability to add more information, such as when and how I met each person. I would like to rate each person after each interaction to create a catalog of contacts similar to the Internet Movie Database. Additionally, if a person's rating falls below 5 out of 10, their calls and text messages should be automatically redirected to voicemail. Story 64. Kids Mode. I want to be able to let my child play games on my phone but not be able to use messaging or other apps. Story 65. There should be an enormous red arrow on screen pointing to the camera when you take a selfie, so everyone knows where the lens is and nobody looks like they are looking outside the frame. Story 66. The backside of most phones is just glass and metal. I would love to have an electronic ink display on the back, so if I want to read, I can just flip the phone over and not have to read on a shiny display or buy a phone with just an electronic ink front display. The phone would probably be a little thicker, and the cameras would likely reduce some reading space, but I could live with that. Story 67. I used to appreciate my Samsung Galaxy Note phones with removable batteries. I carried a fully charged battery in a small case. It was much easier to switch a fully charged battery than to carry a portable charger. There was also a spare battery charger device to recharge the spare battery. It was smaller and less bulky than a portable charger. Story 68. I want a feature that groups notifications at either the application level or the text message conversation level. If a text group chat is active, I do not want more than one notification about it in every 5 minutes. Story 69. I have been keeping a list for several years of features I want in a smartphone. Most of it is hardware. Some of these features already exist or existed, such as infrared blasters and FM radios, but many are just aspirational. Whenever I need something, I update the list. Altimeter, two-way radio, frequency modulation/amplitude modulation radio, amateur radio, citizen band radio, infrared thermometer, thermometer probe, barometer, video projector, microscope, telescope, infrared camera, satellite data and voice communication, blood glucose monitor, credit card payment acceptance, blood alcohol content analyzer, ultrasound, high-power flashlight, laser pointer, infrared sensor send and receive, hygrometer sensor, multimeter, oscilloscope, emergency mesh network node, manometer. Story 70. Guest mode. If you lend your phone to someone to search for something on the web, they will not have access to your personal data. Story 71. Navigation that knows to be quiet when you pull into a gas station and wait until you pull back onto the road before it starts speaking to you again. Story 72. How about being able to open it up myself, replace the battery, and fix it when it is broken? Oh wait, we had all that, but corporate greed took it from us. Story 73. Something I can see being a killer application for augmented reality is mapping physical goods so that the user can see them overlaid in physical space at actual size. This would let people do things like see how clothing would fit, what size television best fits in their living room, which bed length makes a pickup truck too long for their garage, and so on. Story 74. Somebody calls your cell phone. Without ringing, it asks the caller for a personal identification number. If they provide it, the call rings through. If not, it hangs up or goes to voicemail. It could also have a white list of people whose caller identification number lets them through immediately. Instant end to spam calls. Story 75. Having just gone on a cruise and getting separated from my spouse, I would like the ability to locate other people on my plan. Obviously, for privacy, they would have to have it turned on their end as well. Story 76. This will get buried, but ambient sound-based volume is important. The ringer should never be at full blast in a silent church. It should be at full blast in a dance club. The volume over ambient noise is configurable by the end user to account for their personal hearing ability. Story 77. I cannot believe that an incoming call from an unknown number does not automatically trigger a Google search for that number. Story 78. Android has offered this feature for years, but Apple needs to improve and finally provide the ability to mass delete applications. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.